Yes.
I don't see it anymore.
What, your article?
Yeah.
All right, we are going to get started. I'm pretty sure we're going to have some stragglers. Man, that glare on that window makes it rough, doesn't it? It's just like I can't see anything. So upcoming classes, James, webinars. Why don't you tell us about April 4th and April 11th, sir?
April 4th, apparently, is seller's property disclosure case studies. We're going to go over a whole bunch of seller's property disclosures.
It's going to be an interesting webinar because you can't really hand them out.
Yeah, we'll probably send them as PDFs ahead of time.
Oh, there you go.
Or we'll show them on the PowerPoint slides.
Yeah.
But there's more to it than just showing the sample seller's property disclosures. There's discussing what's normal, how to use them, when you usually see them.
Actually, in my head, I was actually thinking fix and flip case studies.
No.
So I was like, man, that's going to be a really weird webinar because it's not like you can hand them out.
We did lowball offer case studies and we're able to do it.
Yeah. Cool. And then April 11th, negotiating win-win inspections.
That is all about negotiating inspections when you're buying properties and what the process looks like, and then what's normal. And
Don't you want your sellers to lose when you're buying properties?
no,
Isn't that our philosophy?
it is not our
Oh, okay, I was just checking.
No, it is not.
And then everyone's in for a great treat the following 2 weeks. 3 weeks, yeah. First 2 weeks will be asset protection, which if you've seen asset protection before, it will be that same class. There will not be a lot of additional stuff because that class has already been taught over the last 3-4 years a couple times. So it's already been revamped quite a bit. And then asset protection in real life the following week with forms. That's a brand new class, so no one's ever seen that. It will either be amazing or suck. Come and find out which. It'll probably be good. I'm going to show operating agreements, organizational meetings, annual meeting minutes, kind of all the stuff you need to run your asset protection in real life as opposed to fake life. I'm not sure why it says in real life.
That's not the name of the class I put up there.
It's not?
No, that's your version.
Maybe I should put this, I should rename this to asset protection in real life, no forms. And then the week after that, we will not be here. As James likes to say, if you want to come here, you'll be by yourself and you'll be outside because we won't have the door open. This is my birthday bash at Ryan's, which is on Harmony and LeMay, basically. And then the week after that, so this, for those of you that are new to NCREG, basically, James and I's birthdays are about exactly, 3 weeks apart? Like to the day. And so 3 weeks from now, we'll have James's birthday bash. So we get a little lull in classes, which is nice for James and I, but maybe not nice for you guys. So, and then arguably the best class of the year, it will not probably be the best class of the year. It will be the most entertaining class of the year. I think James and I have decided we're going to teach 5 to 15-minute topics that don't really take up enough room for another class, and we're going to do it with different accents. So James is going to start off with an Irish accent, and then I'm going to follow that up. So come to that class. It'll be pretty entertaining. Anything you want to say about that?
It's going to be the best class of the year, arguably. The best class of the year.
Yeah, I don't know who you're arguing with. Perfect. Let's get started. Introductions. So name and why you're here, and then what is financial wealth? So we're here to talk about this book tonight, The Millionaire Real Estate Investor. How many of you have read this book? How many of you have read this book more than once? Yeah, so next year when we ask that question, everybody's hand should be in the air again. So you should read it now, and then a year from now, you should read it again. It's got some great stuff in it. But what does financial wealth mean to you? Nick, we're going to start in the back and make James wait till the very end tonight.
I'm Nick, and financial wealth means to be financially free. So you can do whatever you want, when you want.
Do what you want, when you want, where you want, why you want, without breaking the law. Most of the time. Joel.
My name is Joel, and financial wealth means I don't have to check my bank account to see if I can go to Qdoba. I just know I can go to Qdoba.
So go to Qdoba, that's the rule? That sounds like my definition.
All right. I accept. Brandon, you don't have to. If James is your agent, you can just go to Qdoba whenever, and he buys lunch, and it only costs him 6 cents. Like he's in line, 7 burritos. They're like, it's $2.
That is not true.
It's
The
totally
record
true.
recording, it is not true. It is true that if you're my client, you do not need to check your bank account before going to Qdoba with me.
Yes. It is also true that he can pay $2 for 4 people's meals, and it's legit. Yeah. Yeah. Yeah, no doubt. Brendan.
I'm Brendan Foster. I tend to agree with Nick. I think you hit it out of the park on the first go here. What do you want from me?
Nice. What's your name? Rohit? Nice. Introduce yourself and tell me what financial wealth means to you. Welcome to class.
This is my second class. I've been to another class before,
Perfect.
but I skipped so many classes.
Don't skip class. No, I'm kidding.
This might be his last class here because of you.
Yeah, so to me, financial wealth is like being financially independent. Like I don't have to worry about my job.
Gotcha. Cool. Well, thank you and welcome. Hi. I can't even see. Zach.
I'm gonna take my coat off later.
Perfect.
Financial wealth to me is kind of a twofold deal. One is having a financial education and understanding finances is one version of financial wealth, and the other for monetary would be how long can I go without work? Financial wealth would be kind of indefinitely to me.
Yeah.
There yet. So
I like it. I like the education piece too. A lot of people are not, I mean, especially in today's, even when I was a kid, right? I mean, I learned to manage a checkbook and a savings account from my mom, right? They don't teach that stuff in school, and it just gets worse. So, yeah. Hello.
Hi, I'm Beth. I think that my goal is to be able to work for fun instead of work for the money.
Nice. I like it. Josh.
I'm Josh, and I'm going to kind of go to the opposite side of what Brendan said. Not being able to do what you want when you want, but the ability to say no, not having to do things you don't want.
Nice. Have you read this book lately? It's a lot about saying no. Patrick.
I'm Patrick, and I think financial wealth for me would be that you could be on vacation all year. So you either have it on passive income or some other form of, income generation that if you don't feel like working that year, you don't have to.
Nice. I like it. Denise.
I'm Denise, and financial wealth to me is enough cash to last me forever, and then some.
How much is that?
Millions.
Millions. Just millions, not billions or trillions. Nice. Munir, welcome to class. Introduce yourself. Tell us what financial wealth means to you.
And since she's got millions, I'm set.
Perfect. There you go. Mark.
Mark, I think we're all on the same page. Just having enough to do what you want, live where you want, help who you want.
Help who you want's a big one. That could be expensive.
Can be.
Yeah,
Then you get other kind of wealth back.
true.
Not just money.
Yeah. Angie.
I'm Angie.
Say it, the whole thing in an accent. Just Texasize it.
No way.
Don't make her do anything.
Freedom. For a lot of things.
Cool. Awesome. Elijah?
I'm Elijah. Financial wealth for me would have the freedom, I guess, to make a decision where finances aren't the primary driving factor.
Cool. I like it. Sean?
Sean, financial wealth, being free of the 9 to 5. Being able to, really kind of control my own life and not be a slave to the paycheck.
Yeah. Nice. Daryl, my brother with a different color. Mine's all like almost new. I can't get rid of it yet.
Let's see, financial wealth. I think I like the giving back thing. It's sort of like getting beyond not doing a job, but also like, what impact do you have with your wealth?
Yeah. Yeah, I like it. Cameron.
I'm Cameron, and I'd say financial wealth means to me having enough passive income to support my desired lifestyle and everything else is just extra.
He's read the book.
Yeah, that's good.
Nice. Stacy.
I'm
Welcome back to class. Thanks for coming.
I'm Stacy, and to me it means just kind of not having to worry about money and have freedom, and for me, being able to help people if they need it is huge.
Nice. James.
I'm James. Why I'm here to open the door. What does financial wealth mean to me? I don't know. Just don't really think about it much, I guess.
And your real reason, or your real definition?
I don't know. I like to think about it as a number where you're trying to figure out how many months you can live without having to work if you don't want to.
Yeah, I heard that in the back too.
Yeah, I like that.
Yeah. Hello.
Hi,
Introduce yourself. Tell us what financial wealth means to you.
I'm Anna Silva. I would say have enough income coming passively that can take care of all my needs and wants.
Nice. I like it. And we had two of you sneak in the back. Is it Dale?
Yes,
Awesome. Go ahead and introduce yourself.
I'm Dale, and I think financial independence is, for me, it's more about multiple streams of income, not just having one. Also to be able to take care of parents and children, and not actually have to worry about, where the money's coming from. I'd rather have money work for me than work for money.
Yeah. Awesome. Hello. I can't see your name tag. Perfect. What's your name? Ludi. Well, welcome. I'm Brian. For those of you that don't know me, you'll probably hear what my definition is because it's fairly well in here. So this book is actually titled The Millionaire Real Estate Investor. Anyone can do it. Not everyone will you? So part of this is really encouragement to go and make this happen for yourself, right? And so I'm going to try and put some encouragement in here as well as give you the book review. So I should probably ask, how many of you would rather be rich versus wealthy? Rich, hands in the air. Yes. Wealthy? Can you define? Yes. I kind of already defined the first one. So being rich is really, the way the book thinks about it, is about having money, right? Whereas, you've got your job and you could go and work at HP and be an executive and have a ton of money coming in, but the problem with that is what? Yes, you have to go back tomorrow. Yes, that's one problem. But when you stop working, right, your income stream stops for the most part. You may have stock or something like that. Financial wealth is really about owning assets, and whether that's real estate, which is what we teach here, or businesses, right? That is really something that you can depend on, right? You may have aspects of the job that you kind of feel like you have from a 9 to 5, but in proportional income to the amount of time you put in, it's going to be a lot less. So we're focused on owning those assets. And this is kind of the definition I like to use. It's also from the book, but it's having the unearned income to finance your life mission without having to work. So if you could go do and help and give back and do whatever you wanted, and you didn't have to worry about going to a 9 to 5 job, that to me is financial wealth. And I think the key point to the book is, and the key point to the class is really make sure that at the end of the day you can say, I'm glad I went and did this, versus I wish I had, right? And that's, James and I always teach, like, go take action. And so this is really kind of your call to action. And I've taught this class, it was actually almost 2 years ago to the day. So it's been a while since we've taught this class. But I'm going to read a little bit of the book. And these are examples of people that they interviewed who basically took action that was based on this book. And I'll just read a couple of them. Donis King left her secretarial job of 16 years to pursue real estate investing and never looked back. She supported herself solely on rental income and now owns 27 houses free and clear. She was able to retire at an early age. As the mother of 3, Barbara Drake was determined to get a college education to set an example for her children. Not only did her first 2 investment properties pay for her degree, they put her children through school as well. She quit her job to pursue real estate. Now in her 60s, she owns 36 single-family homes and lives off the cash flow. Does that seem doable? You can own 36 homes. How many people think they can own 36 homes? Yeah, I like it. Perfect. And one that's really interesting in here, if you've been to our class on lease options, you'll recognize the name. When Wendy Patton bought her first investment property, she was living in a hotel, made $20K a year, and owed that much in student loans. Today, she's bought and sold more than 600 houses, and she lectures around the country about real estate and investing. So I think there's a lot of examples where you hear the end story, hey, somebody owns 36 houses, and people go, well, yeah, they must have had a CEO job at HP. They had a ton of money coming in, and they just went and did it. But if you spread that out over time, it's pretty doable. James already has more notes than I had words on slides. It's amazing. So becoming a millionaire real estate investor, which is what MREI stands for, right? If you have small plans, what does it equal? Small results. So if we have big plans, oh, you guys are on top of it. But at worst, big plans are going to beat small plans every time, right? Even if you don't achieve the full big plan, this kind of goes to Grant Cardone's 10x rule, right? If you're trying to make $1 million next year, set your goal at 10 million. And if you only get halfway there, you still made 5 million. It was way more than if you set your goal at 1 million, right? And you only got half of it. Best outcomes, right? That's really when you take the big plan and power it with your effort over time. And this is the take action, take massive action, and keep going all day long. Burning desire and readiness to change their lives, to succeed on their own without a job or a boss, without a pension plan or a safety net. So this is, in effect, really the risk that you're going to end up taking, right? If you don't have that burning desire, and we're going to get to what can create that for you, and you know, in your guys' case, maybe it's giving back, and that's your big why. So we'll get there. It's not going to be instant. So if you're here to be a millionaire tomorrow, sorry, it's probably not going to happen unless you already have $999,000. You're going to have to be persistent. You're going to have to be patient. But when you do those things, the opportunities will open up to you. And that's really what the book is about. Setting aside your doubts of, hey, I can't do this. It's not possible. You know, Brian, he's just lucky, right? He went and somehow he did this, and you know, other people in the room who have done this, James says, yep, Brian was lucky. Was I lucky?
I mean, I think luck is a partial factor, but not for most people.
Don't you create your own luck?
You do, by kind of consistently trying and overcoming things that
Yeah.
go against this plan.
Yeah, and I've had my share of fear, which is the next slide, right? So money lives on the other side of fear, right? How many times have you been like, oh, I really don't want to do this? And then you do it, and you're like, wow, I'm really glad I did that, and you're able to step outside your comfort zone. Respect that fear. Like every time I buy a property, depending on what the property is, I still have fear. It's like, is this property going to work out? Should I buy this property? Is this the right decision? But when you step past that, you start making progress.
So you still have fear even to this day?
Yeah. Yeah, I mean, it's always stuff to be afraid of. But if you let it paralyze you, I think that's bad, right? Finding ways and people to help to move around that fear, I think that's key.
Yeah, and I think most people wouldn't think that you'd have fear at this point. I know we do. I mean, when we
Yeah, I'm scared of heights too, so you know, I mean,
Well, that's-
there's that. But this is really, I mean, the very first property I bought, literally I was in tears because I wasn't sure if it was the right thing to do. I was. I was really scared. I was like, man, is this like, should I spend savings on this? It seems like it's crazy. But then on the other side of that, right, you get to the other side of fear and boom, you're like, well, that was easy. And then it was like, okay, let's go do this again, right? This seems easy, let's keep going. But then it was, well, how much do you buy, right? How far do you go? And unfortunately, the only people who ever get to know this are the people who actually took the action and stepped past the fear, right? There's a lot of people who have come to NCREG who had the same fear as I did and who never bought a property and who don't come anymore. And guess what? They're not millionaire real estate investors. So really take that to heart. I thought there was another bullet point on that slide. So I had a conversation with a friend a while ago, and this just illustrates the kind of fear and how it can become irrational. Basically, I said, why don't you take some of your savings and buy a rental house, right? He has a great job, makes decent money, and I said, hey, if you wanted to do this, what would stand in your way? And his answer was money, right? I don't have enough money. And I'm like, okay, well, let's say you had a rich uncle. And he said, I'm willing to invest with you. What would stand in your way now? And basically it was fear of the property value going down. So I, of course, said, well, we live in Fort Collins. I explained the market, past, present, future. Across 15 years, our market's never gone down in the US. And the fear is still, something happens to the property. Like, okay, well, that's what we have insurance for. We can asset protect it for you. Now what's the issue? And then you get at the truth, right? You get at what's really behind the fear. This is only for rich people. And this is the definition that most people have of success, right? Success is working 40 hours a week for 30 or 40 years. And otherwise, you're cheating the system, right? And if that's your belief, it's going to be really tough for you to ever become financially wealthy. So much so, I was in Vegas last week. For those of you who don't know, that's why I wasn't here. He was an amazing guy. I would have loved to take him to dinner. He was a dealer at Caesars, and he had been working there for 50 years. So he was one of the first African-American dealers that Caesar ever had. So I was just asking him for stories, right? Because I'm like, you've seen 50 years of Vegas from, oh man, great stories he told. But he's in that boat, right? Is he financially wealthy? Probably not. 50 years of work. I have an aunt, her goal was to work 50 years. She started working when she was 18 and retired when she was 69. And that was her goal. I want to work 50 years. I'm like, that's crazy. And then, you get to the other kind of more rational how it feels. My current mortgage is already 50% of my current income. So adding another mortgage to that seems absurd, right? Like there's no way I'd be able to pay for it. Do you remember who that was?
I don't actually.
Oh. Does that seem like stuff you'd say?
No, it doesn't
Okay.
at all.
Yeah.
That's why I wasn't sure where you were going with it.
Yeah. Somebody we both know. You were there for the conversation. That's why I wondered. So here's a 100K lesson. And I'm going to read it to you. Hopefully class won't take 4 hours tonight with me reading from the book. But this is a good illustration of what it feels like, and I thought it'd be easier to read than just describe. And this is from the author, Gary Keller, who started Keller Williams. If you don't know, it's the -- largest real estate firm in the U.S. One summer weekend while vacationing at a popular beach resort, his wife and Mary and I ran into a real estate agent in the elevator, and the wife asked, "So how's the real estate market? Heard of any good deals?" "Actually, I know of a great one right here in the building. It's a condo that just came on the market. Would you like to see it?" And they're like, they weren't really thinking about buying, but they decided to go see it. Turns out the agent lived in the building, and it wasn't her listing. She still knew a lot about the property. She related that the owners lived out of town, as did their agent. For those of you that haven't bought properties, this is a good sign. Happened to have bought a fourplex in Loveland from an agent that wasn't from Loveland, and the owners were out of town, and they sold it for less than they probably could have. Anyway, although it was on a corner with beach views and was in great shape, the condo was listed for about $160,000. Mary and I had been coming to that beach for years, and being real estate agents, always picked up the magazines and taken a look. And the agent said, "Honestly, this is a steal." Like any good agent, she asked us if we wanted to put an offer in. Even though we could afford it and it was obviously a good deal, I hadn't yet become a true investor, the kind who won't allow a good deal to pass him or her by. I thanked the agent for her time and told her we'd think about it. In our market, what's going to happen? Done. So normally we'll think about it as just a polite euphemism for no thanks, but sometimes the next week the condo came up in a conversation between me and my wife. After a short discussion, I got up, found the agent's card, and called her with our offer. To give you a sense of how this memory is stuck with me, I remember every aspect of that moment. I was sitting in the den with my favorite armchair, calling from my black cordless phone. When the agent picked up and I told her we wanted to buy the condo, she just laughed and laughed. "I told you the condo was steal. It sold the next day." I hung up the phone and turned to my wife and said, "Honey, we just lost $100,000. So they literally could have bought the condo for 160 and sold it the next day for 260, right? That seems like an easy deal that any of us would gladly take. But you remember those moments very well. And the next time that came up, he goes on to tell the story. Basically, they did it, and they made 5 times that much off the deal, right? Same kind of situation where he bought something and then sold it later and made about $500,000. Brian also has one of these. There was a fourplex. You guys know where Adora Park is? There was a fourplex that backed to this park. Came on the market, I don't know, 3 years ago maybe. And I made an offer. I thought it was a strong offer. And I ended up coming in second place. And it was a difference of like $10K on a 400 plus, I don't even remember how much it was, $480,000 fourplex. And at 480, it was a steal. At 550, it was probably a steal. I could have very easily offered 25K more, gotten the deal, and I will not forget that. And so I didn't make that mistake the next time. The next time I learned the lesson that, hey, if it's a good enough deal, make sure you get it, right? And so when you guys hear me talk, I'm always about, if you're actually going to go after this, are you playing to win, or are you just playing to make an offer, right? And there's some people in this room that have heard that from me directly. It's like, do you just want to make an offer, or do you actually want to win and get the property? So don't let those offers pass you by. Just because it's listed at 400, if the numbers work at 500, find out what it's going to take to get the property and get it under contract. The book is really big in believing in yourself, right? And that's really where the title comes from. Anyone can do this. Any one of you in this room could do this, right? And I'd encourage you all to go do it. But not everyone will, just like everything else in life. So there are 2 rules in how you think that really matter. Building financial wealth through real estate is possible. Anyone, I'll just ask, does everyone believe this? Anyone not believe that? You're in the wrong room if you don't believe that, right? And the second rule is that building financial wealth through real estate is possible for you. And that's the place where most people get hung up, right? Like the friend in the conversation, he's just like, that's cheating the system. There is no way. It's not for me. History's proven the first, and really only you can prove the second. But you've got to believe it's possible for you, and you got to get rid of your self-doubt. Any questions on that?
So is it possible for people to I think it should see a little full.
Does anyone, how many of you think it's possible for you? There you go. You're giving us the so-so.
No, I wanted to see if there were people in the room that we needed to work on.
How many of you would tell us? Maybe the next question is, how many of you would tell us if you didn't think it was possible? No one raised their hands. They're all lying. So big goals, big models, big success, right? The way you do things matters. And this comes back, I mean, I try and teach my kids this, right? Do your best, right? It's the Cub Scout motto. And it's like, if you do the best you can every time, and then you try to improve continuously, you're going to turn out much better. And so really what Gary Keller says, both in this book, and if you've read The One Thing, which if you haven't, you should read that as well. I almost combined the book reviews tonight, but decided class would be 7 hours, so that would not be good. But really going out and finding proven models, which is part of the reason hopefully you guys are here, right? You are learning from James, you're learning from me, you're learning from other people in the room. Hey, you've done it this way and you've gotten to here. I'm going to start here instead of making all the same mistakes that you've made, right? And I've tried to be fairly transparent about stuff that I've done in my career where I'm like, hey, don't make this mistake, right? Don't make your first 4 loans all 25% down when they could have been 20, right? Don't be stupid. And your process, the book basically says, think, plan, produce, right? Not a bad thing, but big goals powered by big models lead to big success, right? If you set small goals or you don't have good process, you're not going to get to the big success. So the big goals are really there to push you to think beyond what your current goals are, right? What's the biggest life you could imagine living? Start there and grow from that. Big models basically take other people's proven methods. Sorry, I'm spitting on the floor. I'm so excited. It's like a bubble. It's like awesome. right? Take time-tested models, right, and build on those, right? And then become better and better, and you'll end up here teaching as well. Hard to raise your own personal ceiling of limitation without proven models. So if you start off and you say, hey, I'm going to just do everything from scratch, I'm going to learn it myself, right? How far are you going to get? You're only going to get to where you can personally go. You're never going to get above that because you're not using anyone else's information. So what does that look like? And I mean, this is a good point. I didn't realize there was another bullet here. But is it better to learn from your own mistakes, or would you rather start with, hey, you know, here's a great person in real estate, Gary Keller. I'm going to take his mistakes and I'm going to start there and I'm going to learn from those. I'm not going to make them, and I'm going to already get a head start. And so this is kind of what that looks like. Here's starting just with what you know, right? Trial and error, and you're going to get to your natural ceiling of achievement, right? You can take any person in any company in the world and say, okay, you're a software developer at Microsoft, and go. And we're not going to train you. We're just going to let you learn on your own. And they're going to do better and better and better, especially if they're super motivated. But there's going to come a time where they hit their ceiling. Now, you take that same person and you start them and give them a head start, and you give them a nice mentor who's already a super senior developer and architect, start them and give them a head start, and then give them the training to become not just a developer, but an architect or a development manager or a director or a vice president, right? Now you're starting them off, and you can really reach where you could actually be.
Where do people get the proven models from?
They get them from books like this, or from coming to class, or learning from other experienced people, right? Who hopefully, right, it's not like I just made all my own stuff up in real estate. Like, I went and found out, how are you doing your lease? How are you doing your lease? What are the things that are going to go wrong? Make sure they're in my lease, and then continue to build. Small example, but I think you do that with everything, and you try and learn. Hey, what's the best way, James, to, you know, do an inspection objection? And how do I negotiate a win-win? Come on April 11th, and you can find out. It's like a commercial for your class. 3 areas of focus for millionaire real estate investors, right? And this is kind of the short summary. We're going to get into this a little bit more, but we spent a lot of time in this class talking about how to buy real estate. So I'm going to skip. There's a middle section of the book that I'm not going to hit as hard as the first section and the last section. So what you buy matters, right? You should all have criteria for what you buy. You should all write it down. If you don't probably really know what your criteria are. If I said, what are you looking to buy, right? Stacy should probably be able to say, I'm doing Nomad and I want something in Fort Collins that's in this price range that can maybe rent for this, that's 3-bed and 2-bath. This is what I'm looking for, right? Whatever is important to your investing strategy. And then narrow those to find the greatest opportunity with the least risk, right? Go analyze the properties. And how you buy it matters. Helps determine what the real deals are. So if you're doing off-market deals or even on-market, you know, if you can negotiate terms on an off-market deal for owner financing, fantastic, right? You can have a lot more control. The terms are really going to determine the value now and in the future, and this really comes back to buying your property right? It's hard to make a mistake in real estate when you buy the property right. You can lose a lot of money buying it wrong, but if you buy it right, time will usually save you. And that's what that says. And who helps you? Network, right? And this is where this room is full of people you can network with. And if you can't find the right person in here, James can connect you because he is the ultimate connector. And that should support all of your deals, but really it comes back to focusing in and having these 3 pieces to focus on. 4 stages of growth, and we're going to cover this in detail a little bit later as well, but this is section 2 of the book. And we're not going to hit this super hard, but it's essentially think $1 million, and that's how you think matters. And they're trying to get you to get to the point where you're earning $1 million every year, right? That's the goal of the book, Millionaire Real Estate Investor. The bigger you think, the more you can achieve. So it's think $1 million, right? Basically believe in yourself, you can do it. Buy $1 million, right? Use the best models, learn from other people, hold and acquire that, and in some cases you might sell. Own $1 million, so having an equity position of $1 million. And really this is where you now have a business, right? Owning one house, you put 20% down, it's a big deal, but when you get to the point where you've got $1 million, or in some cases, this might be more because this book was written a little while ago, but scale up. When you get to an equity position of $1 million, you have a business you're running. Run it like a business and be serious. And then receive $1 million, and really this is where you've kind of mastered the business, right? You're getting $1 million each year, and not everyone's going to get there, right? That's what he's saying, is only the best will. And this really gets us to financial freedom, right? If you have $1 million coming in a year, are you worried about going to a 9-to-5 job? Probably not.
What's super interesting about that is those are the steps that we go over with Nomad.
Right.
Go over the entire plan, think about it.
Yeah.
Acquire 4 properties, and then you go on to
There's,
the equity.
when I get to this section, there's a lot of connection to Nomad.
Yeah, it's pretty interesting. I haven't thought about this in terms of Nomad for a while.
Yeah, when I was going through this, I was like, well, this is just going to be Nomad presentation again in the middle. So I joke that James teaches all of his classes. He just teaches Nomad and he adds one additional slide, and it's basically the same presentation with one skewed slide.
It's because the infrastructure for Nomad is like the perfect teaching tool
Yeah,
for all the angles.
it is.
So.
Yeah, and so tonight I'm going to teach Nomad. It's awesome. Sorry, everybody, you get to hear it again. I'm going to come stand over here because I can't look at this screen without the glare. So he covers 8 myth understandings, which sounds like I'm stuttering, but I'm not. It's actually, he calls them the myth understandings, and there's 3 personal, and so we're going to cover those. I don't need to be an investor. My job will take care of my financial wealth. How many of you believe this is true? How many of the people that are not in this room believe this is true? A lot, right? I mean, I worked at Microsoft for 13 years, for those of you who don't know, and everyone thought, oh, I'm going to sock away money in my 401k, I'm going to have my stock plan, blah, 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 and I'm going to work for so long and then I'm going to retire. And I'm like, you're going to work for so long and then you're going to die, right? That's probably what's going to happen, right? And so the job is really what? It's a place to get your initial capital, right? Somehow you've got to come up with capital. If you've got a rich uncle, fantastic. Go hit him up, get some money. But otherwise, you need to find that capital from that. Rarely is the job enough to create financial independence. And this is really the factor that, you look at 401ks across the US and the average balance is like $100,000. Like, that's crazy. You're not retiring on $100,000 ever, unless you're like living on your own island that is off the grid and you're growing all your own food or something. But I don't think that's happening. And not being active in your investments. How many of you can pick stocks and win? Other than Josh, whose hand I knew would go up. Right? Like, who I saw, did you raise your hand?
Win, what do you mean by win?
Can you pick stocks? Can you pick stocks and reliably make a good return over the course of 30 years?
Yes.
Really?
A good return was a good return, like 7-10%?
Like 30.
Oh, no.
Okay. Yeah.
So there's a side note to this. Warren Buffett actually had a standing bet for the longest time. I think he was willing to donate $1 million to charity if you could pick stocks that would beat the S&P index.
Yeah.
And no one has ever beat him on it.
Yep. Yeah. So I used to day trade, and it's really it's fun because it's almost like gambling, right? Against the house. And you're never going to win long term, right? And so across, in a totally separate class, you can take the entire stock market and look at every period of 30 or 40 years and try and even find a 10% return on average, and the chances that you have that happen are less than 1/10%. So you may be able to kill it in the last year or 2 years, but can you kill it long term? Probably not. So it's a lot easier to be active in a real estate investment. You can pick it, you can manage it, you can control it, right? It's very hard for me to have an impact on Microsoft's stock price, right? I'm like, go up! It doesn't work, right? I can cheer all I want. Don't keep up with the Joneses. This was all too common in Redmond, Washington. Somebody would get a Porsche, someone else would get a Lamborghini, and you're like, what are you doing, right? It's just silliness, right? People are driving around, and it was always, well, somebody has this. My neighbor started off with, his Porsche that was an old used one, and then it became like the nicer Porsche, and then it became the brand new Porsche, and then it was like, I'm tired of Porsches, so I'm gonna get a BMW, and then it was a boathouse. It was just crazy, right? And it was like, then his boat wasn't big enough because he couldn't wakeboard, the wake wasn't big enough, so it would be a different boat. And then a year later, a bigger boat. You're like, and guess what? He didn't have any savings, right? They were basically spending all the money that was coming in. So even though he was making a ton of money, didn't matter. Second one, I don't need or want to be financially wealthy. Anybody in that boat in here? A lot of people are in this boat, right? It's like, I don't really want to be greedy. I don't want money. It's not why I'm on earth, right? And you hear that a lot, and I totally understand where it comes from, but then it's like, hey, what if your friend became sick and you were able to get them treatment that they couldn't otherwise get because you could spend the money on them? Suddenly, a lot of people's views will change, right? What if your parents or your kids or your brothers or your sisters had an issue and you could help them out? Or your friends, right?
What if you got sick and you were going to drain on your family for
Right.
to support yourself?
Yeah, same thing. And you really don't know what you're going to need beyond today. It's hard to tell. And we usually bring up, how much do you think it costs to live in a memory care facility every month today? $7,800 to $10K a month. That's a lot of money, right? I mean, it's a lot of money. My grandparents both had Alzheimer's. My mom has Alzheimer's, so I get it. And you can't build financial wealth in reaction mode. It's too late at that point, right? It's like, oh, I need $10K coming in a month to support my mom. It's too late. Perfect. It's a 4-page excerpt. Get ready for this. James put a note in my book. So, this is basically a conversation that Gary had with one of his students on the pursuit of big financial wealth. And it kind of gets at what I was saying. Student says, I hear you talk about building financial wealth, and I understand the logic of what you're saying. The problem with that is that I'm not motivated by money, right? I'm happy with what I have. I really don't need or want anything else. Life's great just the way it is. Anybody feel like that? Life's great the way it is? Gary says, fair enough. I truly appreciate your honesty and respect your answer, but I want to ask you a question. Do you have insurance? Car, homeowner, disability, medical? Sure, it's a prudent thing to do. Insurance takes care of the unplanned or unexpected, right? Right, that's exactly the way I feel too. Things can happen beyond your control, and it's good to be prepared. My question for you, though, is this. How can you be sure that the unexpected won't happen in areas of your life that insurance won't cover? I'm not sure what you mean, Gary. Well, what happens if you suddenly lost your job or worse, your ability to earn a living? Honestly, I haven't ever really thought about it. I guess you just don't expect things like that to happen. I have no idea what I'd do in that situation, which I think is most people, right? They're working, they're making a good living, they've got a house, they're raising a family, and then tragedy strikes in one way or another. Gary says, I understand, but it's a real possibility and you really should think about it. And by the way, we're just talking about you. What if that sort of thing were to happen to someone you loved and that person wasn't financially prepared? That scares me a little bit. The thought that a friend or family member might someday need my help and that I wouldn't be able to provide it saddens me. If they had health issues or experienced a financial disaster, I think I might feel very bad if I were not in a position to help in a meaningful way. That's exactly what I'm talking about. If something like that happened and you weren't prepared, at the very least, you might have to make incredible sacrifices in order to be of any help. You're a giving, caring person, and I'd hate to see you in that position, but you're not alone. No one can know beyond today what he or she might or might not need in the future, and because that's true, doesn't it make sense to pursue more financial wealth than you currently need, if for no other reason so that financial wealth can serve as an umbrella insurance policy for your life? Make sense?
It's amazing. It's like you read the book to us. We should come.
I know.
And have you read a new book.
So, to kind of take that step, because I can't articulate this kind of as well as this conversation. So to take that one step further, Gary says, just for argument's sake, let's imagine you have all the money you'll ever need. Sweet. You also have enough to take care of the critical unforeseen needs that might arise for your friends and loved ones. Now, if you still had an abundance of financial wealth after all those needs had been taken care of, are there other things you might do with your money? Sure, I guess everyone daydreams about what they'd do if they had a lot of money. I'd love to take my parents on a long trip around the world. They've always wanted to travel but haven't been able to. That's awesome. I love the idea. What else would you do? Man, that's hard to imagine. I guess maybe I'd help out a friend of mine. She's a single mom, and I know that helping her out would be a huge lift for her. That's great, but I want you to think beyond your friends and family. Are there things you'd like to see happen in your community? Well, sure, I'd go crazy with this. I'd fix up the homeless shelter downtown. I'd donate money to provide meals for the needy, set up an after-school recreation program for the kids, and we need an emergency blood bank. I'd fund that too. There's a lot of need in our town. I totally get it, but let's go even bigger than that for a second. What if you had financial wealth such that even after you did all those things, your reach could extend beyond this town? What would you do? Wow, that's tougher. Who thinks about that? I mean, I guess I'd do something huge like support cancer research or create an organization to help fund the fight against heart disease. I might even be able to help put a dent in world hunger. Now listen to yourself. Earlier you said it felt bad to think about pursuing more money. Now it sounds a lot like you're imagining a very exciting life where you're able to make a big difference in the world and the lives of people. I've never really thought about it that way. I guess I've always been afraid that money might own me. That's perfectly normal. I think a lot of people feel that way. There's this idea that having more money or pursuing it will change them, or even worse, corrupt them in some way and make them bad people. However, it's been my personal experience that having more money won't change you at all. What it will do is amplify who you already are. I believe that in the end, people are exposed to new possibilities by financial wealth and empowered by it. Instead of being changed by money, it simply allows them to be more of who they really are. I think that's good. So to me, that's pretty inspiring, right? You think about what you could do even in Fort Collins, and then you think, you know what could I do beyond that? And so when I worked at Microsoft, I met Bill Gates on several occasions, and you look at what he's done now, right? He took his money, walked away, joined forces with Warren Buffett and several other large donors, and basically has almost eradicated several diseases on the planet. And that's hard to imagine. I mean, like, imagine if you were the next Bill Gates and decided, I'm going to eradicate cancer, right? Pretty crazy. Any questions, thoughts? Is everyone feeling inspired? Perfect. The third one, it doesn't matter if I want or need it, I just can't do it. Bullshit. Placing judgment ahead of you actually trying is just you rationalizing ways to say, I'm not going to be able to do it, which is silly, right? If you don't go try it, you're just setting yourself up for disappointment by failing before you've even started. That doesn't make any sense. Figure out what's probable, right? And that's what's happening. Oh, this is a probable outcome versus what's actually possible. And this is why it's the same thing if you think about that graph I showed you earlier. If you start on a higher level, right, your ability of what's possible is much broader thinking. And if you present someone, and I'm sure you guys all have a friend or a relative, you're like, hey, I've got this opportunity, it's amazing. They're just like, no, it's not for me. It's the same thing as the friend that James and I have that's like, yeah, I just can't do it. It's not for me, it's for the rich people, right? Well, maybe you could be that. Oh, you get another excerpt. This one was probably the most, what is this note? Is it like a love note from James to me? So I read the excerpt about Barbara Mattson from the beginning that was just the like, hey, she's successful, owns a bunch of houses. This one is pretty crazy even for me because I have a struggle thinking what my decision would be in this situation. So Barbara worked as a home health nurse and her husband Tom was in construction. Typical family living in a modest home with 2 cars, but in 1997 Tom came home not feeling well. The next morning he couldn't move. Suddenly, Barbara was left to care for her children and an ailing husband while also having to earn enough income to cover 2 car notes, a mortgage, and a mountain of medical bills. Right? This is where being financially wealthy makes this not as much of an issue. It still sucks. Yeah, my husband woke up, he can't move, terrible situation, but now you've got to worry about money. Month after month, the Mattsons battled unsuccessfully to get workers' comp. I'm living on macaroni and cheese here, she complained to her labor attorney. I can't do this, you have to help me. But his only response was, this is a long process, Any of you ever file a workers' comp claim? I've been through something similar. It's horrible. It takes forever. In her efforts to keep the bills paid and the creditors at bay, Barbara was often just circulating her debt, paying from one credit card to the other to make sure the payments got made. In the end, she was encouraged to declare bankruptcy and start over, but she was determined not to give up. In one of those positive coincidences, Barbara bought some tapes on investing in real estate. They originally were intended for Tom to fill his time and possibly eventually provide a way for him to earn income for the family. After all, he worked in construction and understood real estate, but he didn't show much interest. So Barbara listened to the tapes at night while caring for her youngest daughter. She also listened to them on the way to her home care appointments. Then in July 1998, almost 9 months after he became ill, a simple sneeze caused Tom's legs to go numb. He emerged from surgery cocooned in a body cast. Coincidentally, just when things were darkest, his workers' comp was approved, and they received a $20K check covering 9 months of back payments. Guess what's coming? You all get to make a choice. Here's one of those defining moments when the difference between probability thinking and possibility thinking is revealed. Barbara had very little knowledge of investing. In fact, she just listened to that single set of tapes, probably from late night TV, which James, that's where he learned real estate. Between work and looking after her husband and family, she had almost no time. Even though she had temporary possession of a large sum of money, her bills, her debts added up to a lot more. In essence, she didn't have much money at all. Faced with the same situation, what do you think most people would do with this money? Right? Now ask yourself this question. What would you do? You were already there. Your legs don't work. Remember? Can't get there. But seriously, what would you do? It's really hard if you put yourself in that situation, right? I mean, I struggle with this. Like, I would like to think that I would make the choice that she made, but I don't think I would. You know, would they pay off their bills and get their accounts back in order, or would they use the money to supplement their income and get some relief? Or would they do what Barbara did when, in an inspired moment of clarity, she invested the money in real estate? That's crazy to me, right? You want to talk about fear and being in the darkest place you can be. That, to me, is it. Here's $20K. You owe $50K in bills. What are you going to do with that $20K? Live off of it? Invest it? And who's going to invest it? Not very many people. And she says, my philosophy was survival. If I could start buying real estate and build up enough to replace Tom's income, it wouldn't be so bad if he could never work again. Over the next 6 months, she started buying rental properties, and eventually the rents began to add up until she finally could see the light at the end of the tunnel. Today, because she placed no artificial limits on her potential, she owns a real estate company and over $9 million in real estate. That's a crazy story to me. Like, I don't know that I would make that choice.
It's a hard choice to make.
It is. And here's the bad news. Once you decide that it's possible, there's a whole other set of obstacles, right? Time, ability, money. So we're going to talk a little bit about that. Here's this fancy chart, and you all get to do the exercise. James showed this chart not too long ago in a different class, but it's from this book. And on a scale of 1 to 10, I'm going to ask you each to rate your own ability, how much time you have, and how much money you have to invest in real estate. So, and this is what everybody thinks they need, right? They need a lot of ability, they need a lot of time, and they need a lot of money. But that's not the case, right? You actually might need just a little bit of each, or a whole lot of one and none of the others. So, on a scale of 1 to 10, rate your ability in your head. You don't have to tell me. On a scale, we're going to make James tell us, since he's being smart about it. James, what's your ability on a scale of 1 to 10?
Well, let's say 8 or 9.
I rank myself as a 9. Really?
Well,
Investing.
yeah, I mean, are there...
There's always stuff to learn.
Exactly. There are
Yes.
holes in-
That's why I didn't rank myself as a 10.
This is the same reason why I did 8 or 9.
Yeah. Yeah. How about time? Like 0.
I have
1?
probably 3 or 4.
All right.
Well, you know, some of the stuff I do overlap, so you
Yeah.
can argue 6 or 7.
Yeah. So everyone else, think of your number in your head, right? Ability, we're going to give James a 9. Time, we're going to give you a what? 5?
I don't know, 6.
6?
Yeah.
All right. And money?
I don't know, 7 or 8.
7 or 8? Pick one.
8.
So a 9, a 6, and an 8? So multiply those together. 432, right?
54 and what was
9, 6, and 8. I did that wrong.
81 times 6 is 48 plus 9. 48 plus 6, 486.
Oh, there you go. So his number is 486. What's the max number? 10 times 10 times 10, right? 1,000. So the weird thing to think about is if you're at a 1, a 1, and a 1, anybody give themselves a 1, a 1, and a 1? Because I had good news for you if you did.
That's enough. Good news! That is more than enough.
Good news. Yeah, if you're a 1, a 1, and a 1, and you can basically double your ability, double your time, and double your money, you go from a 1 to an 8, right? You've 8x'd, right? It's a multiplication scenario where as each one grows, it becomes exponential. So that's what's pretty cool. And you don't need all of these things. And that's how you get your total. So just think about, hey, if I have a lot of ability but no money and some time, I can go find a partner with someone who in this room has a lot of money and some ability too, but they don't have any time. And you can make that work. All right, that's the 3 personal myth understandings. There's 5 investing ones. Investing is complicated, yes or no? Yes, yes, no. Not stocks. There, we're done. Have a nice night, everyone. So it's only as complicated as you make it. And you can make investing super complicated, right? Hey, Patrick, can you tell me about how to have a trust that the beneficiary is an LLC where I can have an S-Corp on the side as my property management company so I can manage my single-family home? And I need a partner, so I actually need a limited partnership with a general partner as an LLC, and I'm going to be the manager of that as a limited partner to sign for that. Right. Anyone could make this really difficult, or you can make it really easy. I'm going to buy a house, I'm going to rent it out, and I'm going to make some cash flow. So you don't have to know everything, and this is probably one of the biggest points in investing. At some point, you just have to buy a property, right? You can only learn so much from coming to class, from reading these books, from going to seminars. Please don't spend $40,000 on classes. If you're going to do that, spend it on down payment. But you don't have to know everything, just the right things in any given moment. So if tomorrow you go look at a property, and in that moment, you know how to look at the property, and then you know how to go home and analyze the deal, that's all you need to know. You don't need to know, can I get insurance on this property? How am I going to do that? What's important in an insurance policy? You don't have to know that yet. And there's people in this room that can help you along that path. Great investing can be learned. Start slow, right? And just build on it and build on it and build on it. This is probably one of the most key things. Avoid being overwhelmed. There is a point at which you're going to go, woo, I'm going to wholesale and fix and flip, and I'm going to buy and hold. I want to do some lease options. Holy cow, it's amazing, right? You're screwing yourself. It's impossible. Stop, right? You are, right? And he used this really good analogy, which I thought was great. How many of you walk down a buffet line and take 6 of everything? Your plate's going to look real... Josh. All right. Josh is the anomaly in the room. But, if you go to Bonanza, how many of you are eating the pickled herring? Oh, it's really good. I would eat it. But what's a Bonanza? So you're not taking everything. You're taking only what you need. I'm going to have a little salad. I'm going to have a little steak, whatever you're taking, right? So do the same thing with real estate. Only take what you need when you need it. And if you don't know how to get what you need, there are, again, people in this room. Call James, 970-225-6989. Or go visit him at his house, 703 Yarnell Court, Fort Collins, Colorado, 80525. He accepts visitors, but note the sign on his door says no solicitors. So you have to be there as a non-solicitor.
We're going to do comps at your house next time.
That's fine. Myth understanding number 2. The best investments require knowledge most people don't have, right? It's pretty easy, in my opinion, to get the knowledge that you need to find the best investments, right? One of the greatest resources is standing in this room for investing in this area. Invest in things that you know and fully understand. How many of you live in a house or an apartment? Not in your car. Anyone living in their car? Because then you could talk to Sean. He knows all about buying cars and making money on them. Amazing story. Talk to him after class. But without knowledge, you're just gambling, right? And that's crazy. And what's really interesting, Warren Buffett, the greatest stock investor that we will probably ever know, sat out the tech boom because he didn't understand technology. Warren is not a technology guy, which must make conversations between him and Bill Gates really fun, right? like, Bill's an awesome guy. I've never met Warren. That would be a dream, is to sit down with those two at dinner and just listen, because that would be really entertaining. But he just said, pass. Stock boom going on. Billions of dollars he could have made. Pass. I don't need it. I don't get it. If you live in a house, you understand how a house works. You can buy a house and rent it to someone else. You understand the basics of that. You already have it. All right. Myth understanding number 3 for the investing side. Investing is risky. I'll lose my money. You hear this all the time from people that are not investors, right? Or that think they're investors but are really speculators. Josh, what's the difference between investing and speculating? No. What is it really?
Investing, there's usually some reasoning and logic behind it. Speculating is more of guesswork.
Yeah. Investing, I'm going to buy a property in Fort Collins for $300,000. I'm going to rent it for $1,800. I've checked my market. I've been in the area. I understand the market. I understand rents. I understand how to lease. I understand how to screen tenants. That's investing. Speculation, California's market keeps like dropping and then going up. So I'm going to buy a $300,000 house there, wait for it to go to $1 million, and then I'm going to sell it, right? That's speculation, right? I have no idea if appreciation is going to hold. In Fort Collins, in the investing model, if appreciation doesn't happen, I still have cash flow. It's not a bad investment. That's the difference. Have sound criteria and have the patience to go find the right property, especially in this market, right? Our market is crazy. Don't rush. But when you find it, you've got to move now. You've got to be ready. Have all your ducks in a row. Investing is really minimizing your risk and maximizing your return. Number 4, successful investors are able to time the market. James, like 4 weeks ago or 5 weeks ago, made some offhand comment that Brian likes to time the 7-year cycle of the real estate market, and which I have never said in my entire life, but he said I do. And so a lot of people think, oh, you're successful, you're buying low and you're selling high. That's not what we're teaching in class at all, right? Successful timing is basically in our market for buy and hold, you're kind of cost averaging yourself in, right? If you buy one like Nomad, if you buy one now, buy one in a year, buy one in a year, buy one in a year, some of them are going to be higher, some of them are going to be lower. You're going to average out the market. That's okay. Constant action. It's here again. Take action, take action, take action. That's going to lead you to success. And finally, all the good investments are taken, right? Because I bought them all, right? So you can't have them. That's silly. In any market, in any time, there are good investments available. You have to be willing to take the action to go find them. How many people think they could find a deal in the next 3 months in our market? Yeah. How many people think there's a deal that's listed on the MLS right now that's not under contract? I bet there is. James is looking at me like, I don't think so.
Well, actually, I was thinking about something else. I was thinking about, because I read a lot of Warren Buffett stuff, and he talks about there are lots of opportunities for investors to invest in stocks because they don't fit his particular needs anymore. And I was thinking about you as an example, that there are definitely deals out there that if you were early on in your career, you'd be totally taking these things down.
No doubt.
Because you're in a different place and your loan spots are taken up or whatever it is, you're no longer looking at those types of deals.
Yeah.
But they're open for other people to do it. That's kind of what I was thinking. I wasn't listening to you at the time. I was kind of going through that in my mind. So
Yeah. Yeah, and I mean, James can attest to this. After I cried my eyes out on my condo that I bought, that was my first investment, I pulled the trigger very quickly on a bunch of them after that. But it wasn't for lack of effort. It wasn't like, oh, here's a freebie, this one's easy. It's because I was looking at 200 houses a year, right? And I bought 8 of them. So go look at 200 houses, and I bet you find a deal. It may not be 8 in this market. James is like, this is going to be awesome. Call James for that, by the way. He likes to show houses, right? But there's always stuff going on. Divorce, marriage, death, whatever it is, lawsuits, right? Those create opportunities for us, right? And it's not a bad thing. You're not trying to go take advantage of these people. It just is an opportunity. Hey, I got divorced. I'm selling my house. Fantastic. I might want to buy it. So that's part 1 of the book. Is it 8 o'clock yet? Nope. All right, I got time. Here's the summary. Everything big, of course, starts small, right? There was a point in time where I didn't own any real estate. Short-term benefits don't seem to balance out your short-term sacrifices. So when you are saving to buy that first house, and you're like, man, no coffee, no eating out, no cable TV, right? I've got a paid-off car that I traded in my nice whatever car I was driving before that, and now I don't have a car payment, but my car sucks. And you're saving those choices at that point when you buy that first property and you go, woohoo, I bought it, and then you realize, that's like $200 a month in cash flow. You're like, the sacrifices won't always seem worth it, but you have to have the patience to ride that out, right? It's gonna build up over time and it's gonna be amazing. Look at the larger implications of those investments. No matter what your current situation in life is, financial wealth is available to you, right? It's not just available to the rich, it's available to you. Doesn't matter where you're starting, how much knowledge you've got in real estate, how much money you have, how much ability you have, you can make this work for you and you can have the ending you want. So get started and let the power of compounding growth take you there. And don't buy into the myth understandings that we covered. That's part 1.
6.
3. We're lucky. So this is the section where we teach a bunch of stuff on how to analyze properties. So I'm going to try and fly through this fairly quickly, but I want to point out a few things. This is really the 4 stages, right? Think $1 million, buy $1 million, own $1 million, receive $1 million. So in the Think $1 Million, he really talks about the spiritual journey, right? For Gary Keller, building this is a spiritual journey for him, right? He looks at it not as, oh, I'm just trying to build money, but it's really, when you think about money, and I said this a little bit earlier, it reflects, like the more money you get in the part I read out of the book, the more money you have and what you do with it really just amplifies who you are as a person, right? And really, the receipts you have, whether it's the houses you own or the properties you own or the car you drive or the toys you bought, whatever receipts you have, those are absolute proof of what your priorities are. So if you choose, man, I've got this great job and I'm going to eat out every night and I'm going to buy this fancy car and this fancy house, instead of building financial wealth by investing, those are your priorities, right? And there's no, that is the proof, right? It's actually what you're choosing to do.
Pretty profound, actually.
It is. Money is neither good nor bad, right? Per the sample I read out of the book earlier, gives you all sorts of opportunities to do some great things. But it just has the power to reflect and reveal who you really are. And this is really the spiritual kind of side. Whether you are spiritual or not, this is kind of how he thinks about it. And it's you, not the money, who inherently owns the values, right? Just because you have a lot of money doesn't make you a good or bad person. Investors for this book, because he has a lot of investors that he interviewed for this book, came to understand the way they earned the money mattered, right? Mutually beneficial deals. What do we teach all the time in class? Win-win scenarios, not win-lose, every time. Reputation for honesty, right? I'm pretty sure if you have a bad reputation and you're not honest, it'll be your last NCREG class. And fair dealing, right? We want to deal fairly with everybody we deal with. That is literally what we teach and what James and I believe in at the lowest and highest level.
And in case you're wondering if he's joking, we have banned 3 people from NCREG. There are 3 people that are no longer welcome here because they're not doing the right things.
And satisfaction. How many of you are satisfied with the work you do on a daily basis? Yeah. It's not everybody in the room, right? So make that something that you can look forward to. And money's good for the good it can do for you and others. So here's the way that millionaire real estate investors think. They're powered by the big why. And I'll use Mark and Angie because they said, hey, we want to give back, and I don't know the ways in which they want to give back. And if you want to divulge anything while we're talking, fantastic. But My understanding is that they have a big why of why they're doing what they're doing. And so they have that driving force that's always going to be there. And the motivation from that is going to matter far more for any of you than how smart you are, how much money you have. It's going to matter that you know why you're doing what you're doing. Does that feel right? You've got to have that compelling reason in your heart and in your soul to really go the distance, right? When it's 6 a.m. in the morning and you have to get up and do something, it's really easy, like, I'm just not going to do it today. But if you know, hey, if I get up and do this, I'm going to be able to eradicate polio from the world or cure malaria or whatever. It also helps you prioritize your needs, choices, and actions, which he expounds upon. He also wrote this book, which is the one thing. He totally expounds upon how to do that really effectively in that book. So go read the blue book, then read this book, and put them to work together. Big goals, specific measurable targets that are going to fulfill your big why. So you know why you're doing things. The next step, as you've heard me say lots of times, what are your goals? How are you going to get there? Once you've got your goals, use those proven systems from other people to start. Don't rebuild everything yourself, right? And help you get to your big goals. And the big habits, which how many days does it take? Don't answer because you probably know. How many days does it take to create and form a habit? 21. Wrong. Huh? 66. Winner. On average, it's 66. So for those of us that are like, yeah, I've been eating this way for 21 days and then you fall off your diet, guess what? You should have gone 3 times as long. It's true. So they did a study in this book where it's really 66. Did you just read that book?
I heard it somewhere else.
Oh.
How long it takes to like burn out of it.
Yeah, and in some cases it's a lot longer. It's like up to 280 days, right? Something like that. So, you know, if you plan on 66, maybe just shoot for 100, you know, and then you'll be at least beyond that. But 21 is probably not enough. But this is consistent actions and the right choices that come from following your big models. You've got your big why, you figure out your big goals, you use the proven models, and then habitually, consistently, you continue to repeat those actions that will get you there. Number 3, money matters. 4 roles of money: capital, right, the money we use to invest; cash flow, the money we get from our investments; cash, either the money we're spending on consumption or saving to reinvest in more capital. Here's what that chart looks like. Can you see that in the back? Is it clear? So you want to be on the top side of this chart, right? You want the base of your life with money to be capital, which is generating cash flow, which gives you cash, which you can then use to consume things. The majority, far beyond, probably 99% of people in this world are living on the bottom half, right? Consumption is their number one thing. Money in, consume, right? That's what's happening. And then, you know, they might have a little cash left over, and maybe they're getting a little cash flow, but they hardly have any capital to invest. Choose the top half of this graph. Investor, consumer. And this is really, this isn't as profound, but really what we're trying to do is, right, take our earned income, invest it, and turn it into unearned income that will continue forever. And that's the amazing thing about real estate. You buy a property, and it's going to generate cash flow for how long? Either until you sell it or until you die, but then it's going to continue to generate cash flow, right? It's a forever thing. Number 4, net worth. How many of you are tracking your net worth? And you had, like, if I asked you, hey, how much is your net worth? You could give me a number? How many of you are tracking it on a yearly basis? How about quarterly? Anybody tracking it on a monthly? How about weekly? Quicken does it. Perfect. That counts.
I can go look it up.
Right? It's super important. If you don't know what your net worth is, you don't know where you're at, right? You have no measure of where you're at. So if you don't have it, start tracking it and track it over time. And we're going to get to why that's important a little later too. Number 5. Ooh, small print. This must be a good slide. I can hardly read it, so. Real estate. Why do we invest in real estate? All of these things, right? It's accessible. There's real estate everywhere. It's appreciable. most real estate goes up in value. Leverageable, we can put a loan on it. Rentable, improvable, deductible, depreciable, deferrable. That's like a tongue twister. Stable and livable, right? Those are all things that are super beneficial. Phew, that was an easy one. Number, what is this, 5? Value, opportunity, and deals. For you to actually do real estate, you've got to go look at a lot of real estate, right? In order for you to identify what a valuable deal is, right? In looking at 200 houses, now they all look really good in hindsight. Should have bought all of them, found a way, right? But in the moment, James and I would go house to house, and he had nothing better to do than show me like 8 to 10 houses every day, almost. And we'd walk into a house, and we'd compare it to all the stuff we'd seen before. And pretty soon, you have a great bar for what's a good deal and what's not. Hey, this one is actually way more updated than that other one. It's a better location. It's the same price. It's 100 square feet smaller, but who cares? I can probably rent this for more. And you get that in your mindset. Opportunity. You find a property that meets your criteria, and you find a seller that's going to meet your terms. Opportunities are found, deals are made. Action, number 6. I'm waiting for the long one here. Maybe I just crammed 4 on one slide. Investing requires action. Have you heard me say that like 7 times or 8 times or 20 times tonight? Right? However, to be successful, it requires the right action. Right? Knowing the right thing at the right moment, asking the right person for help when you need it, and knowing that they are an expert in that. Most people are impatient and confused about making money. Do you know anyone like this? I know a lot of people like this, right? It's the, oh my gosh, somebody offered me, this opportunity, and I can invest $3,000, which is 1/3 of all the money I have, and they told me I'm going to make $30,000 in 2 years. And then what happens? They don't make anything, and they lose their $3,000, right? Because they're like, oh, it's the quick thing. We're very satisfied with instant gratification. They did a study with kids and marshmallows. How many of you know this study? Yeah, so they basically said, here's a marshmallow. I'm going to go out of the room. And I don't remember it was 5 or 10 or 15 minutes. But if you wait and don't eat your marshmallow, we'll give you a second marshmallow in 5 minutes or 10 minutes. And like the majority of kids eat the first marshmallow, right? And it's just like, loop, gone. Whereas they showed that the kids who were willing to wait and didn't need the instant gratification, they tracked them again later in life. And they had done much, much better. And I'm fairly an instant gratification person in a lot of cases, but it's paid for me to save, right? And save and save and save, because that's what I did when I worked at Microsoft, was just save. Don't be that person. Don't be confused. Don't be impatient. Oh yeah, it's time for another reading. Why is there still a note in this book? I'm going to read that note out loud. Oh, what are we talking about? Wonder what I was going to read here. Oh, last paragraph, page 113. Thank you. Perfect. I was like, man, I don't see the paragraph I wanted to read. So in the course of our research for this book, we talked to hundreds of would-be investors. Some were moving toward their goals, and others were still learning the game. It became clear that those who would become the most successful had at some point made a crucial decision. They decided to take action. Is that important, James? I would think so. I would think so. They said to themselves, I know enough to know I'm heading in the right direction. And for those of you who are sitting in this room and it's your first class or your 30,000th class and you haven't bought a house, this is for you. Those investors understood that investing in real estate is without a doubt a game of acquired knowledge, and more important, a game of knowledge acquired over time. They also knew that no reading list and no seminar schedule could equip them for the task. Some things are learned and refined through doing. At some point, you have to buy a house or a property. And I almost drank your water. So here's the 4 investment profiles. We should have an interesting discussion about what James thinks I am. So there's an observer, which I hope all of you in this room get out of the O category, right? No risk, no return, no financial wealth. There's also the speculator, who we talked about before. High risk, high return. You will undoubtedly meet some of these people at similar meetings to this, in town, who took a chance and made it big. However, their process is probably not repeatable. So be careful. And this really takes, when you're talking to other real estate investors, you have to dig in, right? You can't just believe, oh, well, how do I know that Brian didn't just buy all of his houses in 2009? He bought crappy houses, but it's 10 years later and the market was at the lowest point ever and he got lucky. You should ask. You should find out.
Did you?
No. But I sure wish I would have bought everything in 2012 that I looked at. Collector, right? Low risk, low return, right? But the problem with this one is they love to own stuff and they just buy something, right? Because hey, I'm a real estate investor. I own 3 houses. Fantastic. Why did you buy them? What's the return on them? And it's just that they own it. They just want to be in the game. And so if you can find someone who's a collector, who hasn't yet invested, who has money, they could make you a great partner, right? You actually turn them into an investor, right? Who loves the opportunity and buys the right thing, right? You take their money and make the better decision for them. So, yeah, observer, loves ideas, buys nothing. So we're striving to all be investors, right? And there's a range here, right? Of where you could be. You could be, I'm going to take a little bit more risk and I'm going to lean towards the speculation side because, hey, I've got extra money. I think this is a great buy as an investment, but it's also got a huge upside and I'm willing to take that risk. That's not probably your first property, right? Be right in the middle of this for your first few.
You know what's interesting about this particular little chart is when you see people playing the cash flow game, you can tell which one they are by how they play cash flow. It's pretty fascinating just to kind of watch and sit back.
Where do you think I am on this chart? Because last time this chart was up, we had a really interesting discussion.
I don't remember the discussion.
I don't either, but I know you told me that I was something that I didn't really think I was.
I don't remember what I told you.
Oh. Well, where would you put me?
I'd probably put you close to investor.
Yeah.
In some cases, I think you're I to C. You're a little bit more. I don't know if you're straight up. Maybe you're over a little to the left. I don't know. I could be wrong. It's hard to say sometimes.
Yeah, but then you think about me buying a property like State Farm, that's not a C.
Yeah, well, see, there are like cases where you go and you do things that are
Crazy.
that are well, just. I would think that I think I know where you think I would be.
I mean, I would expect we're both very similar.
Yeah.
Although you're a zero speculation. And you're a zero collector, but you're like a shorter I.
I don't know. I don't know about that one. Sometimes I see myself as the collector.
Yeah, I could see that. All right, the 4 stages. Buy $1 million, next stage. So we're just going to breeze through this. Again, read the book for this because the middle section is literally like 2/3 of the book. So,
Just as an aside, this is really an amazing book, and we probably should teach it more frequently than we do. Or at least review it more frequently, because there's some really good motivational stuff, but there's some really practical information in here as well.
Yep. So these are the 5 models. We're going to talk about the net worth model just briefly. One is learn the path of money, which I think is the most important kind of thing in this. You should have a budget. You should be living by a budget. You should be tracking your net worth with net worth, which we've already covered. But this is the path of money. And most people, if you ask them, hey, path your money, what does that mean? They'd look at you with a blank stare. Understanding how this actually works is fairly important, right? Either you're working for your money or your money is working for you from your assets. If you're working a job, here's where your money comes from. It's your cash flow. There's 4 things you can do with it. Spend it, invest it, donate it, or hold it, right? If you're going to invest it, you can either lend or you can own, right? Daryl does both. He lends and he owns, right? He lends other people money. And then 2 positions, right? Here's your passive and your active. And these generate returns, which come back to make your money work for you. And this seems super simple and super obvious, but go ask your friend who doesn't know anything about real estate, hey, tell me the path your money takes. It'll be like 2 boxes. Job, consumption. So understand that. Really take that to heart. Second model. I told you you're going to fly through this. Financial model. Right? Understanding real estate. We talk all the time about benefits of real estate, right? cash flow, debt pay down, appreciation, depreciation, right? The 4 ways that real estate investors make money. One of the most, and this is Nomad at its finest, by the way. So you buy a house, you take a loan, you put your down payment down, and you've got some equity in the house because they're buying the houses at a discount when they talk about it in this book. As time goes by, you pay down the debt, appreciation takes place, your equity gets bigger, your investment's still the same, and at some point, you've paid the loan off, right? So now you've got a bunch of equity and an investment. And this is really how he thinks about it. Buy it right, pay it down, pay it off. This is, in effect, Nomad if you do this 10 times. The second one shows cash flow, right? Because there's 2 things going on. We're building wealth, dollar-wise, in equity, and we're getting cash flow every month. So when you buy the property, here's how much your cash flow is, right? It's pretty small. It's that first property. It's maybe $100, $200 a month because you got to pay for your debt service, your mortgage, and you got to pay for vacancy, expenses, insurance, taxes, all that stuff. These kind of grow a little bit. I'm not sure they show them growing here. Your debt service remains the same, assuming you've got a 30-year fixed loan. But what happens over time? Rents go up. You don't owe more on the property. And at some point, you've got a lot of cash flow and your loan is paid off. So same thing, cash flow is growing. This is the patience part, and this is also Nomad. So just as an example, he prints this in the book. They're buying properties at a 20% discount with 20% down on a 30-year loan. And basically they said, hey, start in 1983. They took the median price, 20% discount, that's the down payment, and basically they ran this. And if you look, I mean, this is Nomad again, right? And basically they had enough money to start buying a house every year after 10 years of doing it. But you can see, you know, total market value, $3.2 million in 25 years, right? And they're starting at a much lower price point than we are for Nomad. So you could extrapolate this out, and I bet it looks a whole lot like Nomad does. But again, it's patience, right? That's 15 properties over 25 years, total investment, $271,000, and basically they have about 10x that in $2.4 million in equity. It's pretty amazing. Here's what it looks like in a graph, which looks a whole lot like Nomad. All they need is the stock market line down here. James is laughing because he's like, "Ma."
I probably should have reviewed this book before I made all my presentations. I could have saved myself some time.
No doubt. All right, so that was the financial model. The network model. Hey, welcome to the network model. You're here. Just put James in the middle of your network model, and he'll connect you to everyone you need to know. James is a connector for those of you who don't know. So James should be like right here. This is you. James should be right here because he can connect you to any one of these people very, very quickly, or 6 of them, and you can choose the one you like best. But that's kind of how they view, here's my network, right? There's your inner circle, which for me is probably a couple lenders, maybe an insurance guy, and James, right? I didn't even know that my lenders and insurance guys are in that inner circle, right? And then you've got all the other people that help you in your middle, and then your service circle, which is, you know, everything that you need to have done to your properties. Lead generation model and acquisition model. I don't even know if I am talking about that a little bit. So lead generation model, James last summer taught a whole bunch of courses on how to generate leads. Become his client and go listen to those recordings. We're done with that one. That's all I'm going to say. Right? This is basically go establish your criteria and go start marketing for leads. Right? Whether that's looking in the MLS or sending postcards or whatever you want to do. And I said these sections are probably easily a 1/5 of the book just in these 2 sections.
It's like 30 classes, 32-hour classes we teach throughout the year.
Yeah, I can't possibly cover this. So I'm trying to say, yeah, come to the rest of the classes and you'll get that stuff. And then the acquisition model, this is really acquiring properties. So 2 strategies, buy for cash. James, you like that strategy?
I do.
So you could bird dog, you could wholesale, you could fix and flip, and you can buy and sell. This is you buying for cash. James didn't think that's what I meant by that. He doesn't like it as much now. But this is, I'm going to go buy a property, or I'm going to go get a property under my control, and I'm going to make cash from it, right? You're not buying the property for cash. You're buying the property, you're controlling the property so you can get cash today, right? Second strategy is the longer term one. You're buying for cash flow. This has always been my strategy, buy for cash flow. So this is lease option, buy and hold, buy, fix up and hold. All of those things are great. Buying and selling can make you rich. However, buying and holding can make you wealthy. Here's a random chart that was in my slide presentation from before, which just shows you the loan pay down. I have no idea why this is on the slide, but I thought it was interesting. This is based on almost a 7% interest rate for a 15-year and a 7.43%. And it basically shows you, let's just look at the 30-year. In the first year, you're paying 0.9% of your mortgage down. The only reason I left this chart up here was so that you could look at the bottom and really understand what's going on, right? Where are we crossing the 50% mark? Year 22. Takes you 22 years to pay down the first half of your mortgage and the last 8 to pay it off. Crazy. Take it even a step further, like in the last 5 years, you're paying off almost 29% of your loan. That's nuts. There's ways to speed this up. We're not going to talk about them today.
The other good rule of thumb for you to realize is at that interest rate, which is not true when you get lower interest rate, but at that interest rate, you're paying off about 1% of your loan balance each year for the first 3 years. So if you think about you're getting a $250,000 loan at that interest rate, which is not true, you're paying off $2,500 per year for the first 3 years. It's a little bit lower the first, a little bit more the third.
Yep.
But that's the good rule of thumb when you're thinking about that in the field.
Yeah. And so most people don't think about these things, right? And this is where we can make real estate complicated and we can start talking about all sorts of ways to deal with that. But you don't have to make it complicated. It's a 30-year loan. Your tenants are going to pay it off for you. That's the uncomplicated way to think about it. All right, Own a Million, stage 3. Here's the 17 issues of Own a Million. Guess what we're not covering? All 17. I hope. So sticker switch. Let's see where we're going. 4 conditions of money. That's a ways down there. So sticker switch. This is focus, right? And James laughs because he knows there's probably a video coming. And I tried to put it in there, but I couldn't find the right one. How many of you know who Dwayne Johnson is? The Rock, right? Have you ever seen his videos where he's like working out and he's like lifting 3,000 pounds and then he like looks over at somebody in the gym and he goes, focus! And then he like goes back to lifting and he cracks a little smile. That's what it takes in real estate too, right? It's the same thing. If you are, hey, want to do a lease option? Oh, that sounds fun, but I was doing fix and flips, and you're just constantly switching, you're not going to get far. So stick. Don't switch randomly. Make sure if you're going to switch, there's a good reason for it. Become an expert. Think in units. So how hard is it to own 100 single-family homes? How many different locations do you have? 100. How many places, how many managers do you need for that? Maybe one, but maybe multiple managers. Now, let's say we own a 100-unit apartment building. How many locations do we have? 1. It's one entity. It's one manager. It's very easy to manage that. So if you're planning on buying 100 units, don't think about, oh, I want to own 50 million in real estate. Think about how many units am I going to own and where are they going to be and how hard is that going to become to manage? It's much easier to manage 3 30-unit apartment buildings than it is 90 single-family homes. Control the property and negotiate everything. So we've seen in this room where someone's like, oh, there's this great deal. We're like, oh, I should go put it under contract. And they come back the next week. We're like, and they're like still analyzing it. Guess what? The property's gone. All you had to do was put it under contract. You were the only one looking at it, but during the week, 4 other people showed up. It's gone. Control the property. Super important. Get it under contract. Finance creatively if you can. Operating terms, maximize your net operating income, right? The bigger your net operating income, the more cash flow you're going to make. I'm not really sure where this next slide's coming in. 4 conditions of money. Must be down here. Disposition terms. How many of you buy a property and have one plan for that property? I'm going to buy and hold it. That's it. How many of you guys have multiple exit strategies? Right? That's super important. If you buy a property and you've got one exit strategy, hey, we're going to do a lease option. We put a tenant buyer in there, and poof, the market goes down. They can't buy the house, and they move out. And that was your only plan, and now it's negative cash flow, and you've got no other really good exit strategy. That's a problem. Are you going to look it up for me?
No, I'm looking at what top grading is because I think that should solve the problem for me.
Well, good. You can tell us what it is. Get there fast. Number 8, networking. Make associating with number 1 talent your top priority, right? It's like the 5 closest people that are around you is who you become, right? You pick up traits from them. So if you're hanging around people that are top talent, it's going to rub off on you. You're going to be in the position. You're going to create your own luck. James is going to tell us what top grade for ever increasing leverage means.
It's about constantly upgrading your team, looking for the best people in your field.
So you've got a good lender, and then you meet Patrick, and he's a better lender, and you upgrade, right? And then you meet a better lender, and Patrick says, nope, I'm going to get better, and he stays better, and you stay with him. That's $100. Always work from written proposals and contracts. If you've been to asset protection, that's an obvious one. Protect your reputation and operate with confidence, right? What's the saying? The one that's like you act it before you know it. What is that saying? Fake it till you make it, right? Yeah, I don't know. Hey, Daryl got it. My brother with a different color is connected. We are on the same page. Fake it till you make it, right? And this is, it's crazy, right? You don't want to just go talk BS, but there's a point in time where you just have to decide, I know enough about what I'm talking about. I might say a couple things wrong, but I'm going to go get this deal done, and I'm going to learn from it. And then you're going to keep going.
You'll notice Brian listed his abilities as a 9. You obviously don't know everything, at least in your own mind.
No, I learn stuff all the time.
Agreed.
Yeah. Where am I? Money. Hold your money accountable to work for you. Perfect. Let's go to the next slide. So here's the 4 conditions of money. How many people do you know are investing in money markets or CDs or something? And what are those making? Josh is investing in CDs. What does that make, Josh? Nothing. So when I was growing up in the middle of the 80s, what did CDs make?
14.
No.
Yes.
Well, at the very top. Yeah, so I remember getting 7.9 and 8.25% at my bank, which I thought was crazy good. And I'm like, man, if they had that now, that'd be crazy good. That's in the safe money, modest returns, right? So this comes back to Cameron. How much could you make in the stock market across a 10-year period? I know I'm setting you up for a bad question. Maybe 10% across 10 years if you're like one of the best, right? Per year, yeah. Right? And the problem is that's healthy and it's a solid, but what are we seeing in real estate? What kind of returns? 30. Anybody higher?
Yeah, I see 2 weeks ago, you're down 60% in the first year.
Right. I mean, there are definitely places. I was at a meeting before this, and the question was asked, what do you expect from a lease option where the person gets to choose their own house? And I said, my minimum bar is 40%, right? And that's doable. It's a home run, but it's doable. So if you're investing here, right, what are you meeting? Inflation. You're not making money, right? And this is my mom's problem, right? She's like, oh, I've got my money in a CD. And I'm like, Mom, like, what are you making in the CD? 1%? I will give you 6%. Give me all your money, right? And it's too risky, right? She doesn't get it, and it's just too risky, which is fine. But modest returns, solid returns, and this is where we want to be. This is where you're going to build wealth, 15% and higher. Let's take a look at the impact of these different interest rates over time. 1 year, difference between $100 invested every month, $1,200 at 0%, obviously, $1,338 at 20. Doesn't seem too far off. 10 years down the road, right, you're making 4%. You got a CD, and maybe it's averaging 4% across 10 years. Good luck. It's a huge difference, right? Across 30 years, it's monstrous, right? This is nomad again, right? Would you rather make 4% and have 70K, or would you rather make 20% and have 2.3 million? Those are crazy numbers. Don't get stuck in 4% land.
Yeah, and Nomad's another one of those examples where the return is actually much higher than the 30 we're talking about.
Yes. So this is an example of tracking your return on investment and return on equity. So if you were at the return on equity class a little while ago, over time, and I'm not even sure what I'm going to say about this because there's a couple of these All right, we're coming back. So they're just showing, if you look at your return on equity, right, here's what we learned in class. This is going to drop, right? Your equity is building and building and building and building. So your return on your equity from your money you're getting out is constantly going to go down. However, look at the return on investment of the original investment. It's huge, right? I mean, they're starting at 37 and working their way towards 152 over 20 years. When you tell someone outside class that doesn't know real estate, hey, you're going to make a 40% return, they're going to tell you it's a farce, right? Or it's a scam. But it's not. We're somewhere in here. Minimize your tax exposure. That's a whole other series of classes. And your primary asset, protect your time, protect your assets. Be learning-based, right? Learning never ends, right? If you thought you were done when you graduated from high school or college or middle school or however far you got and you quit, don't, right? Continue to learn the rest of your life and be accountable. This is probably one of the biggest things. Find somebody who can make you accountable. Whether it's you posting on a forum, I'm going to do this, and you're sharing your results weekly or monthly, find a group of people to sit down and do it with. You will have much better results if you're doing that. Complexity. So at this stage of the game, when you're trying to own $1 million, it really becomes unavoidable, right? Stuff's going to come up. You're going to have to do asset protection. If you're going to own $1 million worth of real estate, you need to protect it. So complexity kicks in, but it usually comes down to one of four things. Either buying it for less, maximizing your cash flow, which is either increasing your rents or decreasing your expenses, that should be a parenthesis, avoiding taxes, reducing or delaying them, or increasing your return on investment or your return on equity. There's my picture. So it's pretty simple, and this is kind of the chart that boils it all down and how Keller looks at it, right? Go get knowledge, relationship, and leads. Go look at the property, evaluate it, and put it under contract so you control it. Pretty simple. Inspect it, estimate what it's going to cost, contract it out, and then finance it, protect it, and close it. We teach all of this stuff. And then improve it and either sell it to get cash, right? This is getting rich, or funding future investments, or keep it and get cash flow and build equity. And then what do? Repeat. Rinse and repeat, rinse and repeat, rinse and repeat. Any questions on that? Perfect. Everybody still awake? Yeah. All right. Welcome to Nomad. The 4 stages, 40 years later, you can receive $1 million in Nomad. Do you want to teach the Nomad part? So here's some crazy numbers. How much money would you have to earn to net $1 million in annual income? Because that's the goal, receive $1 million in the book. You would need to earn $1.538 million at a tax rate of 35% to have $1 million. It's crazy. How much do you have to earn to invest in order to get $1 million a year in annual income? Even crazier numbers, right? $61 million, so that you can pay a lot in taxes, so that you can invest $40 million at a 2.5% annual return. Again, this comes back to that interest rate chart. If you're in that dead money, you need a ton of money to make this each year. But if you're making 15% a year, you don't need nearly as much. What are you going to do?
I'm just curious what their point was in the book.
I think it's the interest rate.
Yeah, I was wondering why.
You can look it up. Yeah. So this then leads, you might figure it out right here. This then leads you to, and James taught a class on this once, which was the build your dream life class, where he actually had a calculator. You could plug these numbers in. This is how much money I want, and then it spits out, you need to go own this many houses. So this is what they're doing. If you wanted $1 million and you wanted to go buy it right now and receive it now, right, you would need to go buy 102 houses right now, today, and your annual ROI would be 7.2%, and you'd have $1 million. Is this possible? Sure it is, but probably not for most of us right now. And this is the total investment, right? Almost $14 million. At a discount. Yeah. So,
20% discount, right?
yep. So this is buy it now, receive it in the future, right? Again, you can imagine if you have to buy it now to receive $1 million in the future, it's still going to be pretty high. I'm only going to cover the 30-year mortgage. That's 15-year mortgage. But you would basically need about $4 million, and you'd need to own 163 homes. That's 10 years. If you need it in 30 years, it's only 32 homes. So stop and think. This is buy it now. You'd still have to buy 32 homes now. But 32 across 30 years starts to sound reasonable, right? Could you buy a home every year? Maybe. And that's basically getting you only $768,000 is your total investment now, compared to previous $14 million. Hey, we're cutting it down. So what's the next step? You don't have to buy it now. You can buy it over time and receive it in the future. And that is what we teach, right? It's a patience game. So this looks a lot different. This one, 10 years, okay. Let's kind of think about it from a 30-year perspective. You need about, where is it? About $450,000, and your average number of annual acquisitions is 1.2. That's about a house a year. That's not too bad. And you're going to end up with about 36 houses. I'm not sure how he's going to buy 0.8 house of a house, but he might. But that's not so bad. That's kind of nomad, except we're extending it to 30 years. And this is cash flow, this is cash flow only. So what happens when we look at the equity we're building and we pull that out as well and utilize that to help us get there? Looks a lot different. And this is the lease option model of nomad, right? Now, look at this, 0.6. We have to buy a house every 2 years. Anybody think that's impossible to do? You could buy a house every 2 years if you wanted to. And look at our dollars put in, 231,000. That's across 30 years.
And he's putting 20% down on that average annual investment. He's not even nomading these.
Right.
You know, if you nomad it, you put less in.
Yes. So nomad, this number would be much smaller, right? You'd like divide by 10 or 20. So it's doable. That's what this chart in the build-up is to show. You can do it. Even if you don't have a lot of money, if you don't have a lot of time, you don't have a lot of ability, you can still do it. And then the very last thing he talks about is once you start doing this, you need to build your business. And leveraging people, I could spend a lot of time talking about this chart, but at some point, you don't want this to be taking all your time, right? And whether that's you hired a property manager or you built your own company, right, to basically have a CEO that's running your business for you.
We should do a class on that.
Yeah.
We should do a whole class just on that slide.
There you go. Class coming up on that. All right. That's the middle section of the book that's huge. I got the third section left to teach. Any questions on the middle section? Anna's like, I got to go. Yeah. So this is the best section in my opinion. I like the first one and I like this one. The middle one's a little blah. But here's the roadmap to get you there. Establish your base camp, right? And you've heard me say this in other classes. If you don't have a personal budget, go get one, stick to it, live by it, and please live below your means. This is the number one problem of people. They're spending above their means, and then they get the raise, and it brings them up to be even, and then they spend more. You will increase your spending as you earn more money. Be careful. Keep your net worth scorecard. Each week, this is what they suggest. Every week, spend an hour. Imagine if you did this. Spend an hour looking at your balance sheet and your scorecard and saying, how can I grow my net worth and my cash flow? If you spend an hour thinking about your net worth and your cash flow and growing it every week, I bet you'd have some pretty big growth in that area. Avoid non-asset-based debt, so don't go buy a new car and finance it. Don't finance your TV. Don't do that stuff. If something breaks, that's down here. If something breaks, repair it, then think I'm going to buy it used, and only then, if you can't, buy it new. And then still, try to avoid financing it. The first bullet on this, buy based on needs, not wants, a lot of people have a really hard time separating the two. Most people don't need nearly what they think they need. You don't need cable TV, right? Sorry, James actually does with the trash that he watches on cable. I don't think you get it anywhere else. But other than that, it's safe trash. It's not the other kind of trash, in case anyone was doubting. As far as I know, I don't know. But you don't need it. And like James has a friend who wrote an article on basically how to survive on minimum wage because people said they couldn't do it.
It wasn't survive, it was how to thrive.
Yeah.
It was how to go and basically do nomad on minimum wage.
Right, and it's possible, but people don't want to say, oh, I don't want to do that. Yeah, you don't want to have a roommate. That doesn't mean it's a need. It just means it's your desire. So don't confuse the two. Get really hardcore about that. Save up your money and then buy. Number 2, protect your future. Set up an emergency fund. If you don't already have this, 3 to 6 months of your living expenses, and note that this is going to grow as your income grows, right? If you're making $1,000 a week now, your emergency fund is only this big, but when you're making $10,000 a week, it's going to be a lot more. Go buy a home. Go nomad. There it is again. But buy what you can afford, not what Patrick is going to lend you. Patrick will probably tell you that anyway. And yeah, and so one of the key points he makes is, buy the right thing for your family. Don't underbuy, don't overbuy, and it's a really fine line. So, really consider that stuff. Obtain adequate insurance, all of those. Create an estate plan, right? Start with the end in mind. If you have a good estate plan now, it's going to totally set you up to be successful later. Number 3, fund your future. This is the long section of this part. So coming back, right, here's the get motivated section. We've got our big why and our big goals like we talked about before, but visualize your life if you didn't have to work for a living, right? What would you do? How would you give back? Those are your big goals. Now verbalize what you're going to get from living that life. If you've not done this exercise, go home tonight and do it. Right? Verbalize, what are you going to get? What is the satisfaction that you're going to feel from that life? That's your big why. And it should be big. Right? Because that's what's going to drive you to do the things you're going to do. Then write down the monthly dollar amount that it's going to take and figure out the capital you need to invest to get there. This is the build your dream life in 4 bullet points. Go do it on your own because we don't have time to teach the whole thing in class. Second part, acquire knowledge and focus, right? It's time to become an investor. Don't miss out on the 100K deal that's overnight like Gary Keller did. Be ready to take action when the deal comes. Pick your market and learn it. Fort Collins, Loveland, Greeley, Windsor, Evans, Nashville, I don't care. But learn your market and know it. Build your network and hang out with them, right? It's fun to hang out with people who like to talk about real estate, but find people who are experts in real estate. James and I probably talk for like an hour every day about all sorts of stuff. But it pays off, right? I mean, we have all sorts of conversations. We learn stuff from each other all the time. It's like, hey, I ran a calculation on this. That's mind-blowing. And then we try and figure out why it's happening. We're a little different, right? But listen to their experience and advice. And I cannot stress how strongly, I don't really care if you take my advice, unless you actually know where I come from, but go find out who you're going to listen to. Don't just blindly listen to people. Even James, go dig into him. Find out if he knows what he knows, right? Find out why he knows it. Learn. Keep learning, right? Whether it's reading this book or the next book or coming to class or going to a seminar, right? Listen to audio. Lots of people are reading. School's never out. Never stop learning. I can tell you, I'm not an Alzheimer expert, but I've seen it enough. My mom, when she quit her job, basically got Alzheimer's. She was a teacher. She basically stopped thinking, and to her retirement was, I don't have to work anymore. I can just do what I want. And it was just, it just dropped off, which happens in a lot of people's life. Wake up every day and say, I'm an investor. Today could be the day I find an opportunity and make a deal. Fund your future, part 3, generate leads. Not going to spend a lot of time, but like I said, write your criteria down and memorize that list. If you don't have your criteria written down, you probably don't have criteria. Prospect and go find stuff that meets your criteria, but pick a few things and give them time to work. If you're doing postcards, don't send postcards for a month and then, oh, I didn't get any calls and quit, right? Stick with it. If you're looking at the MLS and you look for a week and you're like, oh, none of these have any good cash flow, keep going, right? Again, I probably looked at 200 or 300 houses to buy 8. Find 1 lead a day and work the lead. If you do that every day for a year, I guarantee you're going to find a deal or more, right? And you're going to know so much more at the end of that year than you know today. You're going to know how to analyze deals. You'll be like, I've seen 365 properties with James, right? And I've analyzed 365 deals. It's very easy for me to walk into this house and go, yep, this will probably rent for about $1,850. It's $335,000. That's about 1% cash on cash, right? And you'll have that in your mind. It'll be really easy for you. Convert suspects to prospects. One, suspects, wastes your time and energy. The other one can turn into money. Find out which is which and find out quickly, especially if you're actually dealing with off-market leads. You can waste a ton of time. Go inspect the property, interview the seller, use your network, write the offer, get it done. Buy real estate investments. Yay, my favorite part. When the opportunity shows up, guess what? Take action, take action, and take action. And you better be quick about it. Get control of that property. When it comes up, don't hesitate. But you're looking for the win-win. Off market, on market, find the win-win. Gain insight, last part. Basically following through on your strategy and looking at, hey, can I improve this property? And am I going to sell it or am I going to hold it? This was an interesting quote, which I am actually not sure if I totally agree with 100% the way it ends. Success is the result of good judgment, which is the result of experience. That part, I think, makes sense. But experience, which is the result of bad experience. That actually might be supposed to say bad results. You should look that up. Basically, it's saying you're going to make mistakes, but if you buy right and hold in the investment world in real estate, over time, you'll be okay, right? If you're doing a fix and flip and the market drops, you may not be okay. But if you're buying and holding, you're doing all right. It's good that I screwed that quote up. It's probably why it didn't make sense to me. Here's the roadmap again. Stay the course. This is what he suggests you do every day. And I'll let you read that. But basically, you're generating leads, you're reviewing. Every week, you're going and looking at real estate. Again, take an action, take an action. Every month, meet with your contacts, right? And then ongoing, make offers, buy some real estate. If you do this for 10 hours a week, he didn't care if you did it all in one day or a little bit each day, right? You'll get there and you'll learn a ton. This is a process, not an event. Michael Jordan doesn't make the three-pointer to win the game. That's not an event. There's thousands upon thousands of hours of practice that went behind him making that shot. And people don't understand that in real estate. They go, oh man, he owns 100 units. Man, he bought 100 units today. That's great. There's probably 10 years of experience that built up to that specific moment. Don't forget that. Burnout's going to be lurking, so guard against that, which I'm going to show you how to do. Have an energy plan, which he covers in both of these books, almost word for word. Here's his energy plan. Get up, meditate, and pray in the morning, whatever you want. Energy comes to us when we're doing the right things. And guess what? It leaves us when we're not, right? For me, I experienced that in a big way this week. Got back from Vegas, kind of had some downtime, which I hadn't had in a long time. Things are going well, and I can feel the energy, like I'm excited. So, am I always excited?
No.
No. Yeah. To maximize your life opportunities, you've got to slow down and refuel, right? And you've got to go get that energy, whether it's family, friends, whatever. But do all this stuff every day before noon is what he suggests. Right?
Don't stress out. Do it all before noon.
Yeah. Get up, meditate, and pray. Go have a great breakfast. Spend a little time with your family. Work out, right? Calendar your stuff. Review your budget and net worth sheet, which you're not doing every day. And then go see real estate and buy it, right? Really, the top 4 are going to do those before noon, right? And so if you're meditating, this might take you 10 or 15 minutes. Go work out for 30 minutes, eat a nice breakfast, hug your family, talk with them, go get to work. And this is really where the book, The One Thing comes in. It's really focused on planning and calendaring and blocking your time. All right, in summary, this book's about 3 things, and they're all interconnected. Making money by investing in real estate, right? 3 separate things that are interconnected. And I like this quote, focus, driven by motivation, supported by knowledge and skill, causes one to take action without a thought about not succeeding, right? Stop worrying about the failure point. If you've educated yourself, motivated yourself with your big why, you've got your big goals, and you've got your plan, and everything else is set in motion behind that, you don't have to worry about not succeeding. Don't underestimate the power of that purpose of the big why, right? That purpose and that focus can drive people to do amazing things. So, decide right now that you're going to be the next person that does this. And then, of course, take action. And that is it. Questions? Questions, comments, thoughts?
That to-do list assumes that you don't have a job that you have to be at
No, it doesn't.
by noon.
Yeah, you can do it by 8 a.m. You can get up, work out, eat breakfast, and meditate by 8 or 7.
Well, it has
6.
to your budget and all the other stuff.
Yeah, that's, I mean,
Kind of throughout the day.
yeah, so the one thing, and I should probably teach a class on this because it's a really good book. I just finished it. But he talks about how to really be focused on your one thing, right? And how to block your time, how to say no to people, right? And part of prioritizing is saying no to the stuff. So when you say yes to something, inherently you're saying no to a lot of other things. Someone asks you for help and you say yes, you're saying no, maybe to working on your priorities. And you have to take that into account. So that book is really good for that.
I would agree. I actually really like that book.
Yeah. Other,
Same lines though, that term like unearned income just drives me crazy.
why?
Because you are earning it by putting in the time and educating yourself and making that a priority.
Yeah, I don't think that's probably not why it's called unearned, right? Yeah, it's really more a tax and legal definition of, did you have a job? Is it a W-2? Or is this passive rental income or passive business income? So think about it as active versus passive, not unearned, because we're earning it all, right? But at some point, if you could stop and not have to do any work and money still came in, the IRS is going to look at that as, well, you didn't do any work to earn it, so it's unearned, right? It's passive income. And that's what we're looking for, is the passive side. Yeah. Other thoughts, questions, disbeliefs, arguments?
Yeah, this really is a great book. Everyone should read it. And I think, I always get excited after this class because it's like,
I was super excited to teach it. And I redid the deck, and I was like, oh, I can't wait.
this is good stuff.
Yeah.
And so I think we should review it every year.
Yeah.
Like, it's one of those classes where you should come back to and revisit it. So
Yeah,
yeah, thank you for teaching it.
Yeah.
Appreciate that.
you bet. Cool. Well, thanks for coming. Stick around for the class after the class, and we'll see y'all next week for asset protection in real life.